and listen to remember and accept. I vow to taste the truth of Advaita's words.
I like your hoodie. Good morning. It's so nice to see you here today. Old friends and new ones. And my friends online of the present and future. My name is Jiryu. I'm the abbot here at Green Gulch. And I'm sorry that it's so cold this morning. I feel inappropriately responsible for everyone's experience of the temple. We're doing our best, you know, but it's freezing. But it's nice and warm in here together, side by side, breathing out. And breathing in, remembering that we're alive and that we don't know what that is, and that it's open and bright and together. So I don't know if all of you know the theme already of today's talk. I think that the theme today, part of what the point of me talking on this day is to celebrate this big milestone for San Francisco Zen Center, which is the release of a new book by our founder, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi. So it's been over 20 years since there was a new book by our late founder. You might say, how can a deceased priest write a new book? But he is a powerful, powerful teacher. You know, while Suzuki Roshi was here in the San Francisco Bay Area teaching from, I guess, 1959 to 1971, he taught many things, you know. He was constantly teaching and talking formally and informally, and some of what he said was recorded, in part because of the foresight and wisdom of one of his early students, Marion Derby, who said, could we record these things that you're saying? And that created the basis for this archive of his teaching, which then over the years has blossomed in a couple of books, and this is the latest one. There's still a mountain of archive there that's ready to be mined for more of these jewels to be brought forth. So, hooray. It is, this book has been very close to my heart, which those of you who know me know very well, because I mostly talk about nothing else for the last 7 years or so. I started this project in 2018 at the invitation of our late teacher, Sojun Mel Weitzman, who was himself a disciple of Suzuki Roshi and had sort of squirreled away various bits and pieces of Suzuki Roshi's teaching that had spoken to him and that he hoped one day could make a new book. So I was invited at some point to help organize and support him in that project. And then when he died in 2021, I sort of carried the torch to this moment. It's a beautiful, this calligraphy here is by our good friend Kaz Tanahashi, also a friend of Suzuki Roshi and great artist. It's the character for enjoy. So becoming yourself, just to sit. What's our Zazen instruction? How do we do this meditation practice? Suzuki Roshi says, well, you sit down, care for your posture and your breathing, and then you are just yourself. And that includes everything and is beyond anything that you know. What a relief, what joy. So we enjoy just being ourselves. So this really is a tremendous book. And the, like all of Suzuki Roshi's teaching, each line is like bottomlessly deep. So Norman Fisher was kind enough to join me on Tuesday for an event along with Ruth Ozeki. We did an online event celebrating the book, and he said this wonderful thing to someone who expressed that as much as they needed and longed for the kind of ground and clarity that meditation could maybe offer in this world of confusion and suffering, they weren't really able to settle in meditation, and so they couldn't really find that center that they knew they needed. And Norman said, oh, well, when you feel that way, you just read one line from Becoming Yourself, and that's going to do as much for you as an hour of Zazen meditation. I thought, wow, Norman, what a salesman. This book, I mean, think of how many hours of meditation credit then you get. Just if each line is worth an hour, and then you can endlessly renew it, because that's what people say also about Zen mind, beginner's mind. We read it, throughout our lifetime of practice, and every time there's something new, there's some depth in these simple, straightforward teachings. So anyway, I've been sort of busy this week celebrating the book with people, and it's nice to come home to Green Gulch. Where we've had really a tremendous week. Our water pipes burst yesterday. It's not so unusual, but it's also kind of tremendous. So on Tuesday, I'd say, this book came out, and this is like a big milestone for Zen Center the last 20 years. But then on Wednesday, I was sharing with some Dharma friends that I think maybe what happened on Wednesday is maybe one of the milestone events in the 50 years plus that Green Gulch has been here. So early on Wednesday morning, in the fog, the residents here gathered in this hall for a private ceremony of farewell to our beloved elder teachers, Tenshin Rabbi Anderson Roshi, and Adrian Linda Ruth Cutts, and Steve Weintraub and Rusa Chu. We said goodbye to them in this hall, and then a little while later, a few hours later, they had driven away following their moving truck to Enso Village, the San Francisco Zen Center senior living facility where they've relocated. Each of them has many decades of residential practice here at Green Gulch, like more than 50, like a lifetime of supporting this temple, these great kind of pillars of the temple. Linda, in fact, some of you maybe heard her Dharma talk reflecting, kind of looking to this moment. She came, I think, in 1972 with the first 5 people from Zen Center. to kind of like try to make a temple here. I think they did okay. So tremendous debt of gratitude to them. And Reb, of course, has been a real center of gravity for the teaching, for this community, for a very long time. And even though many of you may not know Steve and Ruth so well, for those of us close in, they've been an incredible resource of wisdom and love and teaching. So, I'm pretty sure that they'll have a good time at Enso Village. You can wake up whenever you want and do whatever you want. I'm actually kind of like, it's not a bad thing. And talking with some of the other elders who have located there, it really is a wonderful place, and they're enjoying their life, they're flourishing in this chapter of their life. So I wish that for our elders and trust that that will be so, and that they'll continue to come by whenever we can get them to give teachings and lead sessions and things. So we will see them around. And still, it's a kind of earthquake for us at Green Gulch. Enough to break the pipes anyway. I had the feeling like, we were all sobbing on Wednesday morning, and I think the water pipes were like, oh, this is what we don't need to contain this anymore. I just joined the waterworks here. So this grief and gratitude, so intimately entwined. And then the maintenance crew is there right away with their walkie-talkies and their shovels, taking good care of what's broken. This is our Zen practice. The pipes break. We drop what we're doing and take good care. The water pipes, our hearts break. We drop what we're doing and take good care of our hearts, of our breath, each other, moment after moment. There's never anything else to do, and we always have what we need to do it. No gap in our practice, just this welcoming and taking care. Now it's a pipe, now it's a heart. So I came across these words from our Soto Zen founder in Japan, Dogen Zenji, and I shared them in the hall on Wednesday. He was reflecting in 12-something on comings and goings, and said, yesterday there was the leaving and entering of inhale and exhale. And this morning there is this leaving and entering. That touched me, the way that this breath right now flowing out as a kind of goodbye and flowing in as a kind of hello, welcome. Was it one breath? Was it 50 years? Breathing out, saying goodbye, letting go of anything and everything, and breathing in, welcoming, saying hello to what's here, ungraspable, bright. So we take care of all of this in the same way. We're sort of one-trick ponies in Zen practice. Breathing out and breathing in. Letting go and welcoming. There's a new book you may have heard of called Becoming Yourself. And in it, many amazing things happen, including an instruction on breath that I'd like to share. So how do we take care of the goings and comings? So our posture, Suzuki Roshi says, if your back is not straight, it is impossible to have good, deep breathing. Good breathing means smooth, deep breathing. It should be calm and it should be strong. When you have good posture, your breath can be very smooth and deep. It should reach the bottom of your belly. Breathing does not actually reach the bottom of your belly. It comes to the bottom of your lungs and not any lower. But the feeling should be of it reaching the bottom of your belly. So breathing all the way out in this way, supporting with this upright spine and open body, this capacity, this structure to hold whatever comes and whatever goes. Breathing all the way out and all the way in. In the first chapter of Becoming Yourself, there's this wonderful teaching, which some of you have heard, about sharing the feeling that our Zen practice is about sharing the feeling that we have of being alive, sharing in the feeling that life is offering to us every moment with whatever situation that we're in, with people and trees and malls. So he says, when we're in the woods and we really share in that feeling, we appreciate the feeling of being in the woods, then that's our meditation practice. And so the same here, how do we share in the feeling of being in this room now? What is that, to share my life feeling with the room and each other, and then share in the feeling that everything is offering to us, this profound intimacy. Becoming one, sounds dramatic, but it's just this intimacy. We're sharing the feeling of where we are. And he says, if we haven't said goodbye to whatever was here a minute ago, it's going to be really hard to share the feeling of what's here now. So, we talk about clearing our mind, we talk about letting go. The only reason we do that is because we want to connect with what's here now. It's not that we renounce because renouncing is good, or we let go because thoughts are bad. We just want to know what's here and be intimate with it. So we're always saying goodbye. Not saying goodbye for any other reason than so that we can say hello totally fully to what's right here. So you park in the parking lot. I don't know how you say goodbye to your car. You can bow, some Zen students, it's like a hazard, I guess, of taking up Zen practice. Some people report a side effect of like uncontained bowing, inappropriate bowing. So we have to like mature that. But here it's okay, kind of safe space, a Zen center. You can just bow to everything. leave yourself lots of time, to get from the parking lot to the Zendo. Just bowing to each tree, and then there's another tree right next to the tree you just bowed to. So I think there's people still trying to make it, from the... So we say goodbye to the car, How amazing to be alive. And when we're in the car, there's just being in the car. We don't know what that is. We can't get a hold of it. It's not separate from anything. And then we park the car, we get out of the car, and maybe we should bow to the car and say goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, car. And then we come to the Zendo. We walk down the path, and we can feel the feeling of being in the woods when we're in the woods. And then the other way too, and this is hard for people on the way back to the car, to bow to the woods, to bow to the Zendo, to say goodbye, to breathe out, to let go. This is beginner's mind. Suzuki Roshi's, you could say, fundamental teaching. Beginner's mind, fresh in every moment. Sounds nice, right? To live fresh, like just born in every moment. What joy, what a relief. No baggage. The poem says that joy would be like the whinny of a pack horse unloaded of everything. That sounds nice. All I've known is how to lug a load, But breathing out, saying goodbye, breathing in, welcoming what's here. There's no need to carry anything forward from the past. Brand new, fresh, beginner's mind. So we say goodbye to the Zendo, goodbye to the woods, and we say hello to the car. I thought you were gone forever. Hello, car. And then we feel the feeling of, appreciate the feeling of being in the car. So letting go and welcoming. And so Tenshin Roshi, Adrian Roshi's role in the community, their stature is part of what was so intense for many of us about their departure. And also that this was the last wave of this group of founding elders who have left Green Gulch and San Francisco Zen Center, City Center also, Tassajara. But for us at Green Gulch, this is the last wave of departures over the last couple of years of these great, deep practitioners who have really held the center for 50 years. And this image of these great trees, the great trees have fallen down. The last great tree, fell down. The landscape is like, whoa, there's these big gaps in the landscape. Sometime in the 1300s, early in the 1300s, at the Soto Zen head temple in Japan, a temple called Eiheiji, there was an abbot, the fifth abbot there, Gyun. He planted these 5 great Japanese cedar trees. So 700 years ago, planted these trees, and these trees apparently live like more than 1,000 years. So in 2010, one of these trees blew down. This great tree falling. And when I became the abbot here at Green Gulch 2.5 years ago, Suzuki Roshi's, by whom there's a new book, Suzuki Roshi's son, Suzuki Roshi, Hoitsu Suzuki Roshi, as opposed to Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, Hoitsu Suzuki Roshi, a dear member of the Sangha, maintaining that connection with the Suzuki family is important for us at Zen Center. he came to support the ceremony, and he brought me this teaching stick, this kotsu, which comes from that tree at Eiheiji that fell down after 700 years. Isn't that like a great present? Oh, wow. That's so cool. And, we kind of like our little objects in Zen. So forgive me for being precious. But that's so cool, right? It's like, where's the tree? Is it gone? Is it here? What's the next life of it? How does it continue? This is the lineage. It doesn't just fall. It unfolds. So, yeah, it'd be better to have the great cedar tree, But the little stick is pretty good. And as many people are telling me, it would be really great to have Tenshin Roshi here, or Eijin Roshi here. Little Jiryu is kind of like the little stick version of the great tree, So the consolation, we could say consolation, or we could say the unfolding, the continuing, the overlapping, and that's what's so magical to me. We didn't plan this, of course, the book coming out, and this departure is all years and years in the making. But to feel that overlapping of lineage, that this new flower of our lineage, of our teaching, is blossoming, just as this other flower is transforming, is falling away. This is how the lineage continues. This is how the teaching goes for 2,500 years, overlapping blossoms. It's not that the teaching, has been held to, it's that the tree keeps blossoming. So I thought I would read a piece from this book that I think speaks to that. And it just called to me this morning because it's about big trees and small trees. And also it's about having problems, which I do. And the problem now that we have here of our elders not being here to practice with us every day. So I think I'll just read this whole chapter, and then if you're lucky, I won't try to explain it to you. We call the chapter Problems. People create problems they do not actually have. When you are afraid of some problem, or when you are too concerned about yourself, you create a problem that you don't have. Originally, you don't have a problem, but you create one for yourself and you suffer from it. Most of the problems we have are homemade problems. You make delicious problems to eat. And this is how we fill our life with problems. If you realize this point, you may realize how important it is to practice Zen. When you practice Zen, there is no problem. I really want to explain it. When you practice Zen, there is no problem. And you will have a bright light within yourself, a bright light within and without. When the light comes, there is no problem. In the darkness, there is a problem. And even if you try, you cannot solve it by working on it in the dark. When the light comes, various problems will be dissolved. Because it is dark, you have a problem. But when it is not dark, there is no problem. Sometimes, under big trees, there are small trees. When you see this, you may think that the small ones are suffering under the big trees. It looks like a problem. Even when we look at nature, we think we see many problems. But if you look at the roots of the small trees and big trees, you will understand how the small trees survive under the big trees. if you do not see the roots, it looks like the small trees always have difficulties under the big trees. But if you understand how the roots of the small trees go under the big trees, you will understand how the small trees survive. Under the big trees, there are many leaves and decayed roots. So the small trees take their food under the big trees, and the big trees always give them nourishment. When the big trees die, the small trees take their place. That is how they survive. But before you see that, it looks to you like a problem. It is the same with our practice. When you have wisdom, true wisdom that is not just a limited understanding, you have no problem. You will understand that the problem itself has some meaning for the problem, for yourself, and for others, and you will understand the true meaning of the problem and the true nature of the problem. We say that our practice is a scarecrow practice. If you just sit, there are no crows around you. Even though you do not try to scare them, they are scared of you and will not come to you. So if you practice Zazen, there is no problem. It's true. Breathing out, saying goodbye. Breathing in, saying hello. So, over the years I've talked about some of the teachings in this book, and as I said, I really could go on for a long time about many of them, but I thought maybe I could just do a little sprint now and just tell you some about what's in here, so that you can just sort of feel or taste some of the themes, if that'd be okay. I guess you're kind of stuck. It's funny that people ask, right? Like, what are you going to do? But I think I'd like to. So we have maybe 5 or 10 more minutes, and then there'll be some time for conversation if there's anything to share. The book, so as I said, Mel had these bits and pieces of Suzuki Roshi's teaching that he had always wanted to share, and that he himself had often taught from. And also he felt it was really important for human beings to understand this Zen way of what we call the Bodhisattva precepts, or how to live in harmony with one another, how to not cause harm, how to extend our sitting practice into our actual living practice by not killing and not stealing and not lying and not exploiting each other or slandering each other or creating division. So we have these precepts that kind of seem like rules for what you should do to be a good person. But actually, they're just what Zazen looks like if you're able to continuously practice it in your everyday life. If that makes sense. If you just keep your meditation practice going, saying goodbye and saying hello, moment after moment, you won't be killing. You won't have time to kill, or lying, or stealing, or separating, or... So the precepts for Suzuki Roshi, the way of life, the moral direction of our practice doesn't come from some ideas about who's good and who's bad and who's doing it right and how should I do it. It comes from just continuing our meditation practice through every moment. I hope that makes sense. It's a really important point. And that's what a chunk of the book is about. He says if you're thinking about the ethical rules of our practice as what I should do, you're kind of sunk. So the point of our practice is to connect with our basic, tender, loving heart, and the way that what we are is already intimate with and includes everyone. And then we live from that ground. And that's how we live this compassionate and kind life together. So they didn't let us put Bodhisattva Precepts in the title because they said, what does that even mean? Bodhisattva Precepts. But that you know that this book is really about Suzuki Roshi's teaching on the precepts. And so in that way, I think really is a deep resource for us in our practice. He says the precepts, this way of living in harmony with others, it's like the hat that's on our head. He tells a story of this kid who is kind of running around frazzled, trying to find his hat because it's on his head. We can all relate to this situation. He says that's what spiritual people are like. We're running to Green Gulch to find this thing that is just our own life. If we would just say goodbye with an out-breath and hello with an in-breath, we have the compassion we need. You don't have to, where's my compassion, what's the way, where's my actual life? We have what we need. We just forgot because we're looking outside. Closer than your own nose, one of the teachings says. Traditional Zen way of saying it. Suzuki Roshi says, it's the hat that you forgot you had on your head. That's our precepts. So I mentioned this teaching on sharing the feeling. Wonderful way to talk about our meditation practice. This intimacy. Another strong element is that this just being yourself, sitting just as you yourself. And he says, when you're just yourself, that includes everything. And that's a very kind of direct thing that we can taste. Just right now, being ourselves, there's nothing outside of that really. Just being this life that you are, is that like, it's not separate from anything. Everything that's here is included in your being alive as yourself. Does that make sense? So everything is included and is intimate. There's this theme of not trying to figure out who you are. It's also wonderful, As soon as we try to figure out what anything is, we're kind of separating from it. We're doing something with our mind instead of connecting in this embodied way with what our life is. Goodbye, kitchen crew. Hello, brand new Zendo without them. Anyway, I have lots more that I could say about the excellent things that are in this book, including many very funny stories. But I think I'd like to hear from you all. If there's anything that anybody wants to share or ask, we can spend another 5 or 10 minutes together.
Suzuki Roshi famously said, try and practice with no gaining mind. Mm-hmm. Mel also wrote about that in the beginning of his book. I wonder if there's any elaboration of that teaching in the new book.
Mm-hmm. It's throughout. So the gaining mind, our basic suffering, according to the Buddha and the ancestors, is that we want something that we don't have. Raise your hand if that's the case. And you don't want something that you do have. Yeah. So that's like in the big way we can see, like, we could make a list for each other. But in a kind of subtle, every moment sort of way, there's something that we want that we don't have. So when we sit down to meditate and we feel like, great, this is a chance when I can get that thing that I want that I don't have, which is like inner peace and oneness with everything and that kind of thing. It's the same thing. It's the same suffering. It's the same confusion. And then, now sitting, I have this confusion, and by sitting, I want to get rid of it. So through sitting, I'm going to get what I want that I don't have, and I'm going to get rid of what I don't want that I do have. And then lots of books, other than Becoming Yourself by Suzuki Roshi, maybe kind of imply that. Zen is tricky, we sort of say it's going to be great. You should do the practice, but then we say, oh, do you want something out of the practice? So I'm sorry for tricking you. Gaining idea, wanting something that we don't have and not wanting something that we do have is the only reason that we don't live out the compassionate, harmonious bodhisattva precepts in our life. Why do we, our innate nature, so this strong theme that our innate nature is this longing for and actuality of our harmony with each other. There's not like multiple lives happening here. This is one life situation that everything is totally included in. We know that. We are that. If we are just ourself, letting go and welcoming what's here, we can live that out. But when we want something that we don't have, or want to get rid of something we do have, we're going to start like cutting some corners, and that's called breaking the precepts. We're going to start separating, putting others down, figuring out how to eliminate each other from our lives, exploiting others to get what we want, etc. So the practice of the precepts as no gaining idea, when we're just content with, not in a stuck way, content is a dangerous word, not in a stuck way, but in this welcoming way, are actually able to welcome and include what's here, then we can really take care of each other. So the way to practice Zazen is just to not want anything other than what's here. In other words, just be ourselves. So thank you for raising that. It really is an important theme. No gaining idea.
Thank you for your talk. First, I wanted to say that the hoodie you pointed out says crying is my superpower. And that's Andrea Gibson. She died this week, so another big tree fell. But what I wanted to say, which is probably says more about me, it does. But I find when I listen to you, I get very anxious about the me of 20 years ago and the me of 10 years ago and the me of 5 years ago, who would have deeply misunderstood what you were saying. Not only in taking it as sort of a, excuse the French, but I don't know how else to, here's a better way to say it. I was going to, an egomaniac with an inferiority complex, somehow taking what you were saying.
That was the nice way to say it.
The other one is piece of shit at the center of the universe. So I find myself sort of codependently worrying about everybody hearing your messages every time you speak. because of the way I would have taken these Zen messages
Yeah.
in the past,
Yeah.
and how they've really driven me to insanity when I've tried to understand them before I could. So maybe the question is more about how do I drop my codependence around that? I don't know. But I just find myself sort of tripping out and loving the nuance and then being very worried.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here now, for staying with it, and staying open to the teaching. You know, at the start of we do this chant at the start of our gatherings, which is this vow to hear the truth. A vow to hear the truth. So there's two ways of listening to and reading and experiencing the, say, religious teachings. We can listen for what's not true, which many of us are trained in, and which is very helpful, you know, to listen for the BS, listen for the thing that could be interpreted in a dangerous way. And we can do that. And also, there's a wish or a possibility of hearing what's true. So that vow that we say is really important that we say that at the start of the talk. Like, you can listen for what the problem might be with what is being offered, or you could listen to what's true in it, you know, not to excuse some misunderstanding, but to go for, there's a story that the Buddha says, you know, if there's a great, you know, if you're walking and it's a hot day and there's a great lake, what wonderful joy, you know, you just jump into the lake and drink of the water and swim in the water. And if you're walking and there's a small pond, you're also pretty happy and drink some water. And if you're walking and there's just a puddle, you know, and you're thirsty, you drink of it. And if you're walking and there's just a hoof print, you know, with kind of some muddy water in it still, you'll sort of go down on your hands and knees and try to get some of that truth. That's that longing for truth, you know. It's like, okay, I'm not going to be distracted by all the ways that I could misunderstand this. I see something really deep that's speaking to my life, and I want to go for that. So I rely on that we say that together. It is always really important to bring up other sides of the teaching. So I wonder if you could say more when you feel like it's a piece of shit at the center of the universe. That you hear that in the Zen teachings, or particularly in my way of expressing the teaching.
The way I would have heard there is no problem.
Oh, yeah.
20 years ago,
Yeah,
10
yeah,
years
yeah.
ago, would have been the sort of, on the one hand, I would have completely bypassed all my problems and been like, I am enlightened and I will pass my enlightenment on to others who are suffering.
Yeah.
And then the other way I would have simultaneously taken it is, you know, if I would let that part of myself out is, but you don't understand how deeply I'm suffering, and what am I supposed to do with all this depth of suffering and this self-hatred and this, and I suffer so much less now from 20 years of practice that I can hear what you say, and I'm like, yeah, there are no problems, right? Like, all my problems are just grist for the mill. All my problems are part of my development, and I can see that through 20 years of practice. But 20 years ago, 10 years ago, you know, it would have been like simultaneously, now I am enlightened, and I am deeply, deeply, deeply suffering, and nobody sees it.
Thank you. Yeah. We are caught and we're free. And it's really hard to hold both of those things at the same time. And most of the time, we're in the caughtness. And touching into Zen practice is like trying to step in for a little bit, at least, into the freedom too. Everything is included. Thank you very much for your comment. This path of actually letting go of everything so that we can connect with what is happening here in a deep way, what our being alive is. really is a vital source for us. Touching that vital source of what this being alive is, then we have the capacity to welcome and work with creatively, wisely, compassionately, all of the details of our suffering and each other's suffering and the world's suffering, from this vow to ease the suffering, which is the source and the goal of this whole process. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask if you're going to release an audiobook.
Oh my goodness, I did not. Thank you so much for that question. I did not put you up to that, I promise, everyone. The audiobook, so one last thing, that's related. The teaching is easy to misunderstand and it's easy to misrepresent. So when we edited these talks, of course, we made a lot of decisions. Suzuki Roshi's original talks can be quite hard to follow. And so they really do need a lot of editing to sort of bring out their brightness. And so we have in this book, there's a section at the end that offers a reference for the original lectures of Suzuki Roshi that this chapter came from. So that if you're interested by what you've read of the edited version, you can say, well, that's what Mel and Jiryu thought, but what did Suzuki Roshi actually say? And go and look at the original unedited Dharma talk and see how it lands for you. So then wanting to carry that same kind of feeling to the audiobook, we do have an audiobook, and our Sangha member and Zen teacher, Peter Coyote, did the narration of it, beautiful narration, that's what he does, and has a beautiful resonant voice and really has spent a lifetime with these teachings, so wonderful person to have gratitude to him for offering that. And then at the end we have 30 or 40 minutes of clips of original Suzuki Roshi, unedited of course, giving some of these talks that the chapters come from. So first you can hear Peter read the chapter that we edited, and then at the end, for some of the chapters, you can hear kind of how Suzuki Roshi said it in his own meandering way. And what you most feel, what's so important about listening, and you can do this, the audiobook really is wonderful, and you can find this online at Engage Wisdom or Cuke.com, to listen to Suzuki Roshi's teaching and to feel the joy and the lightness and the love in it, and I think that goes a long way too. When someone who doesn't care about your problems is saying, you don't really have a problem, that's not so good. But when someone who completely loves you is saying, do you know that your life in some basic way is free of what you're holding? And now from that, can we care for what you're holding? That feels like love and feels like wisdom. And so to feel in Suzuki Roshi, he's always laughing at himself and at the tradition, and he's this kind of warmth in his voice. So that is so hard to make come through in the sort of black and white of the printed word. So then we feel like he must have meant something really seriously that we need to hold on to. Whereas when you hear it, he's just turning these jewels together. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Me